Welcome to the Snipecast, episode 34, and the start of a little cold spell. So before the ground got too hard, I thought we might find a few snipe, but just out from the car and the road, in a little swampy patch, we got a point.
Wild Tasel's overhead, so I'll fly it with him.
I thought this was quite likely to be a jack snipe, so I deliberately didn't put Jake up, and I thought we'd just flush it with the Wild Tasel overhead. It did turn out to be a common snipe. There was actually a couple of common snipe in here. I think it put in on this first stoop. Yeah, buried itself in the reeds. We moved on and actually flushed another, and he bound to it quite nicely in dead ground. I thought I'd filmed the stoop and bind quite well, but it was all out of focus, so I haven't got that bit. But anyway, that was a Wild Tasel, fed and watered and packed off with his supper. And we carried on a bit, well, quite a fair way actually, until we got another point. And again, Jake did quite well. Here again, scoring on the first stoop of the day.
Get him!
He looked there. Little beggar must have started stooping as soon as the dog moved. So he's starting to get his eye in a wee bit just to finish off the season. The next day, it was colder and it was a right slog. We walked miles and miles and miles, and we had the problem, especially with the slightly fat hawk who went off into those snow clouds, that we struggled to get the snipe, the hawk and the dog all in one place at the same time. We either had the snipe or the dog or the hawk, but never the three together. And this was miles later, and about an hour later, when eventually we got a point, and with the two tasels up, and even then we still managed to, between us, mess it all up. 'Cause when I called for the flush the first time, they were in good position, but then the snipe bumped, and they were both slightly out of position, and it turned into a big chase. Interesting chase, and the Wild Tasel nearly caught it. But just one of those days, we just couldn't get things to click on what the Tasels were doing, both out of position at the flush.
Chase is on.
So the third day of the cold snap, and after 2 meals of snipe, Jake was a bit high, and I had a feeling he'd go for a bath, and he did. But we thought we'd struggle for snipe. But we got a point right by the side of the road, and luckily we had the Wild Tasel just to give us some sport while Jake was sunning himself on a rock somewhere. Snipe just put into the reeds at the side of the road on the first flush. So we couldn't accept that unsportsmanlike behaviour, so it doesn't understand how these things work. It's got to fly for its supper, and it did escape after the Wild Tasel gave it one hell of a warming up. Quite a long chase into the distance, but it must have outflown him, or more probably put into the reeds, because he looked really serious today in the chase, so I probably dumped somewhere. He came back. We got another little point. I tried to film his stoops with the my smartphone today. Very difficult. I don't know how other people do it. Looking straight up, craning your neck, and when it's so bright you can't see the screen, so you're guessing that he's in shot. But we got a few stoops. I think this, I don't know what it was, because I was watching him, couldn't see what the snipe was doing, but I think it put in. past the stoops today. I think he put in. A little dog is getting a bit out of control and feral, and she's getting quite good at watching the flight and marking it in and getting a point on the reflush, which is not a bad thing really, but she's getting a bit above herself really. But she pointed this snipe again, so we went for the reflush. Could have been the only snipe we saw, or the only other snipe we saw today, so we went for the reflush. And I think the tassel kills it in the stoop here. I think he kills it there in the air. But he wasn't comfortable with going down on the ground, so I picked that up, and that'll feed an Ayers chick in the spring, hopefully. That will be its ultimate first meal for an Ayers, hopefully, courtesy of the wild tassel. So we tried to find him another one just to get him a meal, and I'm just trying to remember what happened here. Yeah, this was a common snipe. I think it put in on the first stoop. Very rushy, reedy ground, and more often than not they're going to put in. Definitely seen a difference this year between the open ground and the rushy ground, like with most forms of game hawking. If the cover's there, they'll use it. It's frustrating, really. It'd be nice to get rid of all these rushes somehow, but I guess they are habitat. But I think the dog bumps the snipe here somewhere. The tassel was up there somewhere. He's very rarely out of position, and even if he is, he's got such great speed and athleticism, he can just chase the snipe and get on terms with it. And he did end up catching it down in that river valley. You don't see it on film, but that's him fed. And that's as animated as Jake got today. Sat on a rock, sunning himself after a nice bath.